Welcome to the Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership Podcast. Subscribe now so you don't miss a drop of straight talk you can't get anywhere else. We discuss the whiskeys to drink, music to listen to, and what it really takes to be an effective leader. I'm your host, Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist. Tonight's guest, Vice President of Production at Fuse Advertising, owner of Shock City Studios, and jazz musician, DeRochelle Coleman. Hey, what you drinking? I love that. And you're reminding me of a conversation I had with one of my mentors. I seem to be talking about him more and more, Mr. Stan Hutchin, who passed away, I believe, in 2002. But he was a vice president with the Coca-Cola Company for 150 years. I think he was born into that role. And when I had an opportunity to sit with him and just talk to him about what is it like to be the vice president and what kinds of things do you have to deal with and what can I do to get ready? One of the things he said to me, he said, Galen, the only difference between my job today and my job when I first started with this company is today I've got fewer people with which to share my problems. It's like, but everything's pretty much the same, right? There are more commas to my decision. There are more figures to my decision. My decision impacts more people, but it's the same kind of issue. And I've got to be able to handle this without being able to get the perspective of as many people as I could when I was younger in my career. So I think you're right. And to be totally honest, I think that was the thing that drew me to becoming an executive coach. I want to be that person that senior executives can lean on as a thought partner as they're managing through these important decisions. How have you noticed that the decisions that you're making today, they may have changed. To your point, nothing's exactly the same as it was when you were 17 years old or 18 years old. But how have you noticed that the fundamentals of problem solving, the fundamentals of music, the fundamentals that seems to be the same, although the situation might be different?
Well, like the fundamentals are the same, from being an artist, being an instrumentalist, to being a vice president at the fourth largest African-American ad agency in the country, Fuse Advertising. All of the fundamentals have been the same for me. I've learned that in order to really be successful at something or really good at something, you have to be obsessed with it. You can look back over, those of us who've had an opportunity to have a long career or and want to have longer careers and lives and everything. You look back over it, there are these moments of success spikes in the graph, right? And you can measure those spikes by how obsessed you were with something. When I was 11 and I started playing the saxophone, I was pretty sad. I didn't play well at all. But by the time I got probably about 14 or 15 years old, I became obsessed with the alto saxophone. And I would practice for hours every day, like 2 to 3 hours every day without fail. And there's this spike in my playing, and that has proved itself for anything. When I was in college and I wasn't doing so well academically, and I said, I'm gonna lock these things down. It's because I got focused after I was an intern for Def Jam and Motown for Polygram distribution. And after that internship, and I got back to school on campus, my grades jumped up. I got, started getting on the dean's list and all of that stuff. Even my grades were terrible before that. But I became obsessed with wanting to be in the music industry and make that my living, And then when I wanted to be a producer, I became obsessed with that. So I got really good at it. When I wanted to have my own record label, I became obsessed with it, and it happened. When I wanted my own recording studio, I just obsessed over that, over having that. And, now it's the largest full format recording studio in the state of Missouri. So it may sound weird, but that fundamental of having the desire and being obsessed with something that's good can make you, or if it's bad, it can make you spike in a different direction that's not so good for you.
Yeah.
But if it's something that is good, beautiful, and something that's for you, you can see over your life where these huge jumps in success happen really quickly.
Yeah, one of the books I know that you're very fond of, and this is something that we share. I did not know that until I got ready for this conversation, is the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And one of the things that he talks about is you don't always get what you want in life. You get what you think about most of the time. So whatever you think about most of the time, positive or negative, that's what you get. And I hear that in your story, that it's an obsession. Whatever you think about most of the time, that's what you create. And I can see that in artists. I can see that in and other professionals. Even if I don't understand their craft, I can still appreciate when they've got an obsession for something. There's a video of a conversation between of Kobe Bryant talking about the first time he was going to meet and play against Michael Jordan. He said, what this other guy didn't realize is that thing that you are afraid of in Michael Jordan, I'm that too. I've got that same thing. And that's what generated the bond between them, is that this kindred spirit of, I recognize the obsession that you have for your craft. Tell me about how easy it is to identify when you've got artists, either in your previous role when you're in artist development, or in your current role when you're doing all the things that you're doing now. Tell me about when you can see in someone's eyes that they've got that obsession, or maybe they don't. Maybe they've got talent, but they don't have the obsession. How are you able to tangibly see that?
There's a focus that you can see in them. For instance, T.I., when I was at Warner Music Group as an artist development, we had a promo tour planned to come through the Midwest, and I had him in St. Louis. This was after, I think his first album may have been on Capitol Records, I think, but it was not on Atlantic. But so this was his first effort, and he had a joint venture with Atlantic Records, and so we had a promo tour in St. Louis. It was my first time working with him, and we were promoting his first album on Atlantic Records, Trap Music. And he had copies of Trap Music, but it was the unreleased version of it before it came out on Atlantic Records. So we were walking up. There's this area in St. Louis called the Loop, if you're familiar with the Del Mar Loop. And back in the early 2000s, this was like probably 2002, 2003, something like that. And he was selling copies of the CD out of his backpack to just walking up to people on the street. And he was a signed artist. He had a video about to come out, on MTV and BET. He had an album about to be released on Atlantic Records. He had already previously had an album on another label, and he was still focused. He was still, out there hustling these CDs, like $10 a pop, And then we went and we got on the tour bus to go do some other runs to the radio station and stuff like that. And then he was on the phone with the video director, and he was looking at cuts of the video, and he was, telling the video director how to edit the video. Like, no, shawty, like right here, we need some more asses shaking right there and that part right there, because it's not enough. And well, I mean, I mean, literally, he's on the phone with the director, and they're going over cuts of the video. And the entire time I spent with him, and it was probably just like a day and a half, he was never not focused on Ti, on his career, on his
Wow.
music, on his album, on his on everything. I mean, it was, and I could see it. I'm like, he's going to be huge because he just had that laser surgical focus on what the job that he knew he had to do.
And I'll tell you something else that I suspect is that even if you don't necessarily appreciate the genre, that thing is consistent because you have worked with folks like, Missy Elliott, which I can see that same, we're going to make this happen. And then you go to Linkin Park, little different genre. I can still see that same, okay, we're gonna make this happen a little different. And then Yolanda Adams, okay, incredibly different genre, but you can still see that same consistent commitment, determination to accomplish something. And I don't necessarily have to know what that something is or agree with that something, but I could tangibly see it. Even basketball players, the Kobe Bryants, the Michael Jordans of the world, you can see that. You can see that thing. And then you've even earned an Emmy nomination. And this is the thing that really blew me away. Talk about your Emmy nomination, for the category and the person that you were working with, because totally different than any of the other folks that we talked about.
Yeah, well, the Emmy nomination came from working with a nonprofit organization, Kids Rock Cancer. I guess a colleague slash business partner of ours, Jeremiah Dallas, and he sat on the board at the time of uh, of Kids Rock Cancer, and he said, "Hey, D, I want you to produce this record that we're doing for Kids Rock Cancer. It's a nonprofit that we provide services for children that have cancer, and we want to. It's a music initiative, and so that's how that situation came about. I never expected. I only expected to do something nice for the kids because it was a really cool program. It's like the children who were diagnosed and who were terminal, they were given the opportunity to do a song, write a song, and have it fully produced with professional musicians and everything else as a gift to the loved ones that they were going to leave behind when they were leaving. And so it was just an amazing opportunity to feel that type of energy in the studio. And I didn't even know there was an Emmy nom, until like after it was like after the award show, and I was like, what? It's like, yeah, it got nominated for an Emmy. I'm like, what? Really, the song? I was like, so it's a very humbling experience.
Wow, man, we could talk music for the next 3 days because I just found your story incredibly unique and unlike almost any of the guests that I've had. But I got to have you share, if you don't mind, share your whiskey story or your cognac story, because even that has some music in it. But I thought this was just a cool story.
It does. So my uncle Ernie, which is my dad's first cousin, and he's a blues singer, signed to Malaco Records. So he was always on tour and doing the different things. And I think this was around, I was 20, I think. Yeah, it was 96. And I'm in Dallas where he resides, and I'm visiting family. And he had just come from being on tour in France. And he said he did some shows in Cognac, France, and he's like, I brought some cognac back from France. You want to try something? I'm like, yeah, sure, okay. And so he pulls it. I don't even know what it's called. I was 19, and he pours up the cognac neat in the glass, and he started sipping on it, and I'm like holding it, like first of all, I'm looking for the ice. And I'm saying, okay, well, he's not gonna have any ice. Maybe it's something to it. Let me just, and then I'm like, Uncle Ernie, do you have some Coke or something that I can, Coca-Cola or something that I can mix with this? It's a little, he was like, son, this is a $300 bottle of cognac from France. And I got it in France. And you want to take a 50-cent Coca-Cola and mix with it? No, sir. You don't do that. And so that's what the first time and to this day, I have not mixed a Coke with any like high-end liquor or anything like that's probably why I don't drink vodka because a lot of times, yeah, people mix those things with juices and all this type of stuff. So yeah, thank you, Uncle Ernie, for putting me on the game and saying, no, we don't do that. We don't pour Coke into really nice, fine
Ah,
liquors. You don't do that.
oh my gosh. I love that story. I love that story. And then it's
He's a
like,
bad dude, man. If you get probably get a chance to look him up on Spotify or whatever your streaming music service is, Ernie Johnson, man.
I checked him out and I was like, wait a second. He's not just a blues singer. This dude's got some chops.
Oh, he's got some chops.
He's got some scrawl in his voice.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. He toured a lot. I mean, Johnny Taylor was like his best friends. There's a story that my dad tells me. I'm too young to remember it, but I probably was like 2 years old or something, where the band, Johnny Taylor's band, they were on tour and they were doing some shows around the New Orleans area. And my uncle Ernie was on that tour too, and my uncle Ernie kept saying, "Man, if y'all, I know y'all want to go to these restaurants and all of this stuff and eat," said, but man, my cousin and his wife, man, they can cook a home cooked meal. They got all the good, New Orleans dishes, red beans and rice, gumbo, whatever y'all want, you know. And so my uncle's band, which some of the musicians also played in Johnny Taylor's band, and Johnny Taylor's band came over to my house where I grew up, my parents' house, and had dinner and stayed overnight because they were just staying there so late, drinking and having fun or whatever. But Johnny he was at the hotel, so he didn't come, but the rest of his band did come and stay at my house. Probably, I think I was like 2 years old or something, 2 or 3 years old.
Oh my gosh. That's reminding me of a conversation I had with one of my direct reports when I was at Coke, Mr. Mark Johnson, which I got to find Mark Johnson, but he talked about how his dad was a middleweight boxer. His boxing career was over when Mark was somewhat young, pretty young, but his older brother. There are pictures of his older brother being held by Muhammad Ali, a very young Muhammad Ali, because they were kind of all in that same little running time together. He said that his older brother has got photos of sitting in the arms of Miles Davis. Miles Davis used to spit peas into a can in the middle of the kitchen, and that's how he was keeping his embouchure together, just spitting peas into this can in the middle of the kitchen. And I'm like, oh my gosh, just the life we live before we know how amazing it is. Now, hey, okay, so now we're getting close on time, but I gotta ask you about this because you're another good Napoleon Hill devotee. So you might recognize that my Invisible Board of Directors is very similar. It's straight out of Thinking or Rich, but Napoleon Hill called it his Invisible Council. And because I'm a business dude, I changed it to your Invisible Board of Directors. Talk to me a little bit about who you got on your Invisible Board of Directors and why. Because, again, you got some pretty strong, iconic music names on here, as well as just iconic business people. So talk to me a little bit about your Invisible Board.
Well, I think the first person I had put on there was Nina Simone, and I feel that any great board has to have spirit, and I just think that she has such a great spirit as a musician, as an activist, as an African woman, and embodied a boldness that it was not afraid to speak truth to power, and did it so eloquently and elegantly, and used her gift to do so, used all her gifts to do so. So that reading to Simone. Then Russell Simmons. I mean, you don't get more mogul than that. You don't get more mogul than Russell Simmons. Russell, I think for his vision into something that everyone thought was a fad.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, well, hip hop, that's not, rap music, that's not going to be around in 5 or 10 years. That's
Yeah, I was going to say 10 years tops. 10
yeah,
years
10
tops.
years tops, and it's over. Game over. And he was a pioneer in one of the greatest American musical art forms since jazz. So, that's why I have Russell on there. Got to have Russell on there, and not just for the music. I mean, for the culture of hip hop.
Yeah, yeah.
Just the culture of. I mean, we changed the way we dressed. The way, and not we as in African Americans or Black folks, but like the world, like the planet. Because of his efforts in what he was doing with his artists. Run DMC and LL Cool J and Beastie Boys, and I mean, it's just you can just go Public Enemy. You just go on and on with the influences of that come from the stable of Russell Simmons, right? Then you go into Fat Farm and all the other things that made other folks want to do that. If you didn't have Russell, you won't have Master P. You won't have won't have Puff. You won't have all these other moguls that have done music and film and fashion and like a Kanye West and all. You don't have that Jay-Z without Russell.
Yeah, you don't have the blueprint.
Yeah, you don't have the blueprint. You don't. And then Reginald Lewis. I mean, that's just if you want to be fearless and unapologetic about what your vision is and being totally focused on what the mission is and like I said, being uncompromising. That's what I get from Reginald Lewis, one of the first African American billionaires in our country's history. Hey, any of your listeners out there, if you don't know who Reginald Lewis is, please, I don't want to mess it up for you. Yeah, I want you to be awed, just like I was awed, like reading this and going like, what? Wow.
I'll tell you the thread that I'm seeing between all three of those people all three of those icons are a word that you use, and that's fearlessness. And I'll tell you, I had known of Nina Simone, but I hadn't really listened to Nina Simone until I started listening to, and I think the first thing that I had listened to was her rendition of Strange Fruit. It was an experience. There, I could feel, I could see, I could visually see what she was singing about. And when I experienced that, I said, well, let me find something else. Because at that point I was embarrassed that I didn't know much about Nina Simone. And so I started looking at some of her catalog, and Mississippi Goddamn, I'm like, can you say that? Can you say that? And I saw a video of her doing that song, and she was in Mississippi and she had some folks in her audience that I wouldn't expect to enjoy Nina Simone, and they were all dancing. I'm like, how do you do that? How do you leverage such a refined art? And she was classically trained as a pianist, and she actually started as a classical pianist and found her voice, and she had, the perm and all that stuff, but she found her voice and she became the Nina Simone that folks recognize today. A lot of folks are surprised to know that she was initially a classical pianist because of who she is today. But it's that fearlessness that comes through with all of those people. Talk to me a little bit about how fearlessness seeps into the kind of work that you do, because You're doing a lot of things that I'm sure that there are 3 or 4 dozen reasons as to why you can't do the things that you're doing.
Yeah, fearlessness. I've been blessed to have some really great mentors. My parents are by far the largest, mentors in my life that exuded for me, complete fearlessness when it came to the time that they were living in, right? So my dad was born in 1942, my mom was born in 1944. So you know, it was during segregation, of the country and the things that and the stories that they told me that these are my parents, not my grandparents, right?
Yeah.
So now you got my grandparents telling me stories, and they were born in the 20s, right? So it was just always talked about how to, not be afraid of doing something. This is just great fearless teachers in my past. My junior high band director who made me fall in love with music again after my first few years of playing, and I got frustrated and I said I don't want to play saxophone anymore. And then I got in the seventh grade. I said, well, I'm at a new school, new band director. Maybe I'll try. And Mr. Leon Sanders, the late Leon Sanders, got in his band, and it just changed my life. And he said if you stick with this saxophone, it is going to take you all around the world.
Mm.
And he told me that when in the seventh grade. And I don't know if he told all the seventh graders that. I'm sure he did because he is a huge influence over a lot of different young people. But the folks like that, like I said, Roy Bouton and then Alvin Batiste and then even out of college, there are people like my first job was at the Soul Kitchen recording studios under Ron Carbo. He's the music copyist for Wynton Marsalis. He was the assistant engineer on all the New Kids on the Block albums back in the day. He was Brian McKnight's production manager for like 12 years or something
Wow.
crazy. So I just worked on a lot of records. And then, my music industry mentor, TJ Miller, who I was his intern at Motown Def Jam. And then he's the one who hired me at Warner when I got out of college. By that time, he was the national vice president of urban music at Warner Brothers. Watching all of those folks be fearless
Mm.
in what they had to do and very focused in what they're doing, it always made me believe that or always gave me confidence into not being afraid of doing something. We all have fear,
Yeah.
and fear is the thing that stops most of us from doing something that we really want to do. It's those times where we are courageous and push through that fear when something special happens, right? And so I've seen these people do amazing things, and it's because they weren't afraid. So that gave me confidence into diving into things, without fear. It's an ingredient that you can't leave out of the gumbo of success.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Man, look at okay, so that banging that you hear on the walls, those are my VIPs. They're like, dude, you're supposed to be here like 10 minutes ago, but oh my gosh, this has been such a great conversation, man. If you got a few more minutes, I've got to bring you into the VIPs before they tear the doors down. How can folks get a hold of you if they want to get either more of this insight or they want to check out your studio, they want to use your services, or just tap into some of your wisdom? What's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Well, if they want to get a hold of me, the quickest way is to hit me up on IG at Black Tracks. That's BLAKTRAX. So you leave out the C, Black Tracks, on IG. But they can also, check out Shock City Studios, shockcitystudios.com or Shock City Studios on the gram. Um, the Red and Black Brass Band. We didn't even get into that. Red and Black Brass Band. Fuse Advertising.
We didn't talk about Fuse advertising.
And then sunnyhillinc.org, which is a nonprofit organization that I do. I'm a marketing specialist at as well. That they provide services for individuals diagnosed with developmental disorders. So
I love it. I love it. Maybe we can get into some of that fuse advertising in the VIP room. So if you're a VIP, then you get to come with us on the other side of the ropes. If you're not a VIP, again, this is another one. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, we're talking $5 a month. $5 a month, and you get to hear this extra conversation about the connections between whiskey, jazz, and leadership from this guy who has not only studied with some of the greats, he has studied the greats, and he is like in this space himself. He's making it happen, and we're gonna steal him away and let my VIPs ask him a couple questions, because this has been an incredible conversation, man. This is reminding me of the conversation around that fire pit, and man, I just really appreciate what you're doing. We didn't even talk about Kappa Alpha Psi. Oh, that's amazing, because I mean, I'm a member. I consider myself a good member. But you were, when I came in and got active, you were the president of the local chapter. So you were the pole mark of the local chapter. And man, I really appreciate how whatever you do, you seem to do it fully. And that just reminds me of my mantra that I share with my clients. I believe that everyone is designed to be the greatest in the world at something. Your life's mission is to find your thing. Because all this time that you spend meandering around other folks' things, instead of being focused on your thing, you're wasting time. So find your thing. So, dude, raise your glass.
mm,
All right. Good noob. Thank you so much, man, for this conversation, and continued success to you, man, until we get to the other side of the rope. Cheers.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, Galen.
Hey, it's not too late. Hit that subscribe button so you're sure to catch the next episode. If you're really enjoying the vibe, leave us a review or become a VIP for guest and show exclusives. Cheers.